Chargers. Touchdown, UCLA.
With USC great and NFL stud, Frosty Rucker.
The Trojans back in front.
And LAFB founder Ryan Dyrud on the Believe Podcast Network and LAFBnetwork.com. This is your destination for Los Angeles football.
What's up, Los Angeles? It's your boy, Ryan Dyrud, along with Mia here. And we're here to talk to you about my bookie. The LA Football Show and the LA Football Network as a whole are proud to be partnered with mybookie.ag. It is the best sports book in the business. Head to mybookie.ag today. Use the promo code LAFB, and you're going to double your deposit. Got a great slate of games this weekend coming up. I know the Rams are on a bye, but you got the Chargers facing the Steelers. You got some other primetime matchups that you can parlay along with player props and other sports, of course, if you're into the NBA, NHL, or whatnot. Once again, go to mybookie.ag. Use my promo code LAFB to double your deposit. Tell them everyone at the LA Football Network sent you. And now, for myself and for Mia, let's get on with the show. All right, Los Angeles. Well, it's healing time after a brutal loss to the San Francisco 49ers, the fifth one in a row in the McVay era to Kyle Shanahan. It was a tough game. We're going to get all into it, but I'm really excited to welcome on to the LA Football Show, and we've got a fun announcement here in a minute as well. But Brittany McReynolds is going to be joining me. Many of you probably know her on Twitter as Brittany Betts, but what's going on, Brittany? How you doing? Thanks for joining me.
Hi, guys. Hi, Ryan. Thanks for having me. So excited to be here.
Absolutely. No, you're one of the diehard Rams fans. You got a great following on Twitter. You know your stuff. You love football. So excited to have you on and talk about this game. I wish it was a better game to talk about, but it'll be fun to get your perspective. So before we, kind of announce, let's just get into the game. So what were you doing last night? What were you doing for the game? How are you watching it? How are you taking in this horrible loss?
Oh my goodness. So last night was the first night that I actually met someone from Rams Twitter, two people actually, Angel and Paul. So nice. We met up at our house. We were so excited to finally meet. Yeah, shout out to the Ramley. We met up somewhere local out here in Santa Clarita, and we were just really excited to get together. Obviously, the outcome wasn't what we wanted. Yeah, it was a brutal game to watch,
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and obviously then the questions start coming in about, McVay versus Shanahan and why he has his number, and some of those, I think we can look back to like past Rams years when, the Jeff Fisher years, which the Rams were not good football teams, but they had Pete Carroll's number. Like they were really good against the Seahawks for some reason. And that was kind of what the Rams fans held their hat on. Like, well, we got the Seahawks. So the Niners fans kind of do that to us now. It's like we've been a winning organization every year with Sean McVay. We're always there in the playoffs. I know the Niners have that one good year in 2019, but other than that, they've been a pretty bad team, but they beat us for some reason. Just from your perspective as a fan or as you watch the games, or what is it, do you think, that Kyle Shanahan does that he just has McVay's number?
I really don't know. I don't think that McVay is getting out-coached per se. I think that he's just overthinking it himself. I mean, realistically, I thought that we were going to come in and be what the 49ers were on offense. It was crazy how they were pounding the rock. It was crazy how they were just sustaining drives and moving the ball, and we couldn't get anything done. And it was like Sean just kept trying to prove different things, that trickery before the half, like going into the half. It's like that guy is really in his head. He must have like a Shanahan punching dummy or something, because it is bad.
It's like voodoo or some magic, because I say this all the time, that coaches in general, not just Sean, but coaches in general just overcoach sometimes. They overthink and they get away from what they're good at and try to like prove this, like, I don't know if it's a macho complex or what, but try to prove something that they're not. And he does it every time against specifically the Niners. He does it other weeks as well, unfortunately. I still think he's one of the best coaches in the game. But yeah, they get away from the run game. I mean, the Niners, like old school smash mouth football. The Rams ran it like 11, I think. And that's just not a recipe for success against a solid defense that the Niners have. I mean, that's kind of what it is, right? It's really all it is to it is just overcoaching, I think.
Exactly. Just thinking too much into it, not trying to pound the football and just, getting the run game going so that you can open up the pass. I've been saying it for weeks. I get it. McVay has this shiny new toy. He wants to show off Stafford. He wants to show off the plays that they've worked up. That's great. But, we got to get that pass, opened up, run the ball. This season is obviously disappointing. We don't have Cam Akers, but we still have a run committee, and get those legs moving and pound the rock, move the ball, open up that RPO. I think that the O-line, they played decent last night. I think offensively, the struggles were just with a lot of miscues. I think that over time, the chemistry is going to produce between, obviously Odell and even I call him Bisco. I can't pronounce his last name, but he stepped in to take Bobby Tree's position at wide receiver too. So, he's going to be playing a lot more, but there were a lot of drops last night. Yeah. So I didn't like that. I didn't like like I said, the offensive miscues there. Defensive side of the ball is a whole nother story. How much time do we have?
Get to that. we'll get to that. But yeah, Ben Skronek, I believe is how you say it. It was basically his starting debut as a rookie, and he looked like a rookie. You could tell there was nerves there. Yeah. Had some drops, had some miscues. I think long term it'll be okay. He's not
in the end zone.
Yeah, crucial. I know. And Tyler Higbee had some bad drop, one leading to a pick six, obviously. So just a lot of miscues overall in offense. The thing that frustrates me, and I know they got down early. They were down, like 21-7 pretty early on. But in the running game, Darrell Henderson averaged 6.2 yards per carry. Sony Michel averaged 5 yards per carry. So they were very efficient. And, if the passing game wasn't being prolific, even though you're behind, like, why not do the thing that's actually working, which was the running game? And they only ran the ball, like 9 times, 10 times total in the game. So I think if they would have done that, it may have opened things up. Yeah, exactly. And that's what they did against the Titans. I've talked a ton about going back to last season when they ran the ball 30 plus times, they were like an undefeated team. Anytime they got away from that, things got out of control, out of hand. They weren't able to sustain drives. They started becoming predictable, and we see that again. But let's talk about Matthew Stafford, Brittany. And Twitter had a meltdown last night, per usual, after a Rams loss. I mean, what's new? But then you get then you get the comparisons of Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford and whatnot. What do you think from watching? What's been his issues these last 2 weeks?
I don't know what's going on in his head. I think there's a lot of pressure, just like with the media and just like all the changes in the locker room, but again, he's a veteran quarterback, so when it's all said and done, you got to shake all that off. You got to perform when it's time. Just looking back at last week's game, he didn't take that safety. He threw a pick. He said after the game, he spotted him 14 points. He did the exact same thing this game. He just seemed a little bit panicky to me. It seemed like he just kind of would launch the ball just whenever. Like I said, a lot of miscues. His chemistry with Odell obviously isn't there. That first interception, I actually missed that. I was driving. So on the radio, I heard them say that he had threw the ball. Odell was running up the sideline, and I guess the pick got thrown maybe up top. And I guess he thought Odell was going to cut inside or whatever the case was. So I just kind of chalked that up to, first game. The chemistry isn't there, but seeing him, he looked really frustrated. He looked like, this isn't the way that he expected this offense to be. I think that the O-line didn't help him last week, but this week they came out, they did what they were supposed to do. The crucial penalty from that we got with Whitworth when they blew the whistle, and I think that just kind of really changes the momentum, of the game. And once we get behind, it's just really hard to catch up.
Yeah, and that's another thing with this offense. You wouldn't think that should be an issue, like getting behind and the game's over almost. It seems like every time, and I think it's just because they become too one-dimensional. Even though when you have those weapons, and when defenses know exactly what you're going to do and what you're going to throw at them, they can stop you every time, which we saw last night. And the first pick you talked about, and this is just kind of the head scratching thing with Stafford is, yes, Odell kind of stopped on his route. There was a miscommunication there, but he still heaved it up into double coverage. He had probably, and I know he's not a running quarterback, but he had, 20 yards of wide open space that he could have just ran for a first down, slid, or even if he didn't get to the
Okay.
first down, if he was that slow, you could have ran 7-8 yards, positive yards, slide. I think it was only going to be third down at that point. So then you live to fight another day. So stuff like that. And then later in the game, Brittany, similarly, at this point, the game was out of reach, but they're in the red zone, going down to score. He runs out of the pocket to the left, runs like 4 yards past the line of scrimmage, and then like backpedals and still throws it. Like,
Yeah.
there's something in his psyche right now that seems a little messed up, right?
Yeah. Like that isn't what a vet quarterback, is supposed to be doing. He was already past the line of scrimmage, so we got the penalty there. But even there, you were like 2 yards away from the goal line.
Yeah.
Just fall right there. He didn't want to run it in. He didn't want to take that hit. Whatever the case was, I thought that he had a blocker there and a hole, could have got it in there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he didn't do it. Fall at the 2, Staff. Like, get us a little bit closer.
Yeah, he could have literally just stepped out of bounds and it's still a 5-yard gain. And you stop the clock. And so I don't know if I think, and this is something that no one's really talked about. And there's a lot of, obviously the quarterback position is super mental, but a lot of it is like a psyche, like a mentality as well, not just like actual mental, like learning the playbook and whatnot. There's like a mentality. When he played in Detroit for those 13 seasons, he was the Detroit Lions. I know there were years with Megatron and he had some good weapons, but he had the mentality every week that they were going to win or lose based on what he did. The team was on his back. He had to play well, had to take over games if they're going to win. He has like 33 come from behind victories in the fourth quarter because he would have to hit the team on his back. It seems like now he's on the Rams with Sean McVay with these new weapons, but he still has that mentality of like, this is all on me to make things happen. When in reality, it's not. Like, he has all these weapons. He has, for the most part, good play calling, good scheme. Like when it all is working right, has a good running game, good offensive line. So I think when we kind of break it down, when you look at the psychology of it all, it's almost he needs to step back and say, I need to just do my job. I don't need to do 11 or 10 other players' jobs. And when he does that, like we saw in some weeks when he was just out there, threw it 28 times, had 21 completions, great efficiency, 2 touchdowns, 300 yards. That's when this offense is going to click. But when he starts getting that mentality, like, oh, we're down, I got to play hero ball here, be the Matthew Stafford Detroit. So I think it's just going to be breaking him out of that. Do you kind of see that as well?
No, I totally agree with you. I think that, coming into the situation, that was his mentality. And I think that is hard to break, especially under Sean McVay, because Sean McVay for so long kind of had to steer the ship with Jared Goff and kind of, pretty much help him read defenses. And like, it's kind of like they both are coming from situations where, one had to fend without the other. And now you put them together. And for instance, I'll see plays where, like, I know Matt Stafford has like really good quarterback awareness. His quarterback IQ is there where he can break down the defense. And like, you see him like step back in the pocket and he's looking at the defense. Okay, nothing's there. He's, he's scanning for a play. But lately I've been seeing him like look for a specific target. And like, you'll see, Higbee wide open out on the flat. And we're like, 2nd and 1, 3rd and 1. And he's launching it, trying to get it to Cooper Kupp. And it's like triple coverage right there. Or like they know that it's going to Cooper Kupp, and we don't just take like the short yards. And so I think a lot of it has to do with both Sean and Matt Stafford's mentality. I think that if he does just kind of play his role and just let everything else fall into place as far as the offense, it'll work. But I think that Sean kind of has to let him also kind of control some of the offense as well. Not obviously not relinquish it all to him, but as a veteran quarterback, I expect him to make decisions and know how to, make the right necessary moves if a play is breaking down, that kind of thing. And he just hasn't been looking like that lately.
Yeah. It's like they're both coming from bad, broken relationships, and then they're falling into those old patterns. And it's like, this is a new thing now. This is a new relationship that we're building together. Do what each of you do well and don't do what you don't do well. And they're trying to like overlap and supersede those. So now with the bye week, hopefully they get that figured out. I think they will. I still, I'm a much more even keel person anyway, but I'm like, okay, Matthew Stafford is an upgrade over Jared Goff. That's just a fact. He hasn't played well the last 2 weeks. They're still 7-3. It's not like they're like this dumpster fire. I think they'll get it right. I think he'll be a solid MVP candidate again. 3 weeks from now, we can put this all behind us. But the other issue now, which we'll get to, Brittany, and wrap this up here soon, is the defense. And, overall, I think this defense has gotten more hate than I think it deserves. But last night, they were definitely not a good defense. They could not stop the run at all. Raheem Morris, who has gotten a ton of flack from this fan base, whether it's justified or not. But for some reason, specifically looking at last night, you're not putting your best corner, Jalen Ramsey, on their best receiver. You're still moving them all over, and Deebo Samuel ends up just tearing you apart. So what's just your opinion on, not even, we'll get into last night in a minute, but just overall on Raheem Morris? Do you think he's as bad as people on Twitter and Rams fan base say, or do you think he deserves a little more credit than he's been getting?
Man, it sucks to be
the floor is yours. You
Raheem
have all the
right
time you
now.
want.
Oh my goodness. Listen, Rams Twitter, when it comes to Raheem Morris, they are ruthless, like relentless. They are ripping him a new one. Now, do I think that it's justified? I think that he was coming into a big situation. He had some big shoes to fill. Granted, the Rams lost a lot of assistants, as far as their coaching staff. On defense, we still have the same guys, like when you look at that roster, you're like, I can coach that roster. Anybody can coach that roster. But I think that it's really hard. Like last night, it was hard to watch Jalen Ramsey just be so frustrated. Like we were playing soft zone coverage, and like I wanted Jalen to be covering Deebo. Like Kittle, somebody. Like they're picking us apart. Jimmy G didn't have to do anything but get them the ball. And it just felt like Raheem wasn't adjusting. And I think that over the course of the weeks, I don't think that he necessarily has been adjusted. I just think that the defense has fallen together and it started to play like this defense has been expected to play. Schematically, do I think that he has it together? I don't know. I think that I want to still give him time. I don't want to just say get rid of him. But again, he has some really, really big shoes to fill coming in, taking over for Staley. And hopefully we can figure it out. I think that we played really well last game. This game was I really think it was just one of those games where the Niners just have our number. I'm hopeful that the bye is going to give us a little bit of rest, going into the next game against Green Bay. But that's a must win. We got to figure it out there.
Yeah, which we can talk about in a minute. But you go from Kyle Shanahan to Matt LaFleur, who are two guys that know Sean McVay very well, and Sean McVay doesn't seem to do good against his colleagues. But with Raheem Morris, it's tough because I see where the anger stems from, and I see where the disapproval and disappointment stems from. But I also think it's a little unfair when you look at just the facts. Coming into last night's game, the Rams were the number 1 rated defense by Pro Football Focus. They were top 5 in almost every statistical category. And they've had their miscues and some schematic woes, like you said, but overall they've been better than given credit for. But that being said, they've also beat up on bad teams and haven't performed well against good teams and good offenses. We saw the Cardinals, take on. So it's one of those, okay, well, how good really are they? What's the measuring stick they're going against? How much is Raheem Morris actually doing? And how much is it just they have a lot of talent that's making up for it? So last night, I think, was a big eye-opener, and you mentioned it perfectly. It's just it's the adjustments. I think during the week, they have good game plans. I think they have good practices. It's not like this guy doesn't know football. I mean, he knows what he's doing. But I think it's that in-game, what made Brandon Staley so great and still so great is what he would change, not just half to half, but series to series, move guys around, have different, schematically players play in different situations. And we haven't really seen Coach Morris do that yet. And I would implore, I'm sure Sean McVay there have this conversation. Like, I don't know why it didn't happen last night earlier, but like, why is our best player, who we gave up 2 first-round picks for, not covering their only threat on, well, not only that they have George Kittle too, but their biggest threat? Like, let's take him out of the game, shut it down. That gives us the best opportunity to win. So I think moving forward, hopefully we'll see that. I don't think Raheem Morris is going anywhere. People are saying fire him during the bye week. That's not going to happen. This is a 7-3 team. You're not going to totally shift the whole dynamics of the defense after one really bad game. Do you think they should do that, or no? You're like, okay, let's just see what they do during the bye week and see what he can improve on.
Listen, I have been pretty critical, but when it's all said and done, as far as decisions to be made, I think that this team is headed in the right direction. I think that, again, adjustments, it has to be on the very next play. Like, so, people are frustrated because we're not figuring it out. We're losing games. We've lost 3. Okay. But I think that this is, again, like you said, a real eye opener, and it's something that we're going to figure out. when they review that film, I really hope that they touch on that 4th and 6 touchdown, because that was
Yeah.
huge. Like, it was just like a slap in the face, just a nail in the coffin.
Yeah. I think my biggest critique on Raheem, and I don't know how you feel about this, and I love Nick Scott. He's actually one of the first interviews I ever did while podcasting. Awesome guy. I think he's a great player, phenomenal special teamer, and a good safety. But to me, Terrell Burgess, who I've also interviewed, has the potential to be. Obviously, we're not at practice every day, but he's a guy that I think can have a real impact on this team. And he's getting no reps. He can't even get on the field. And that's something I would really ask Coach Morris, like, talk to me about this, because we see Nick Scott out there instead of Terrell Burgess. What's going on here? Is it a political thing? You just like the player better, or what's going on with that?
I don't know. I mean, I remember, some weeks back when David Long Jr. wasn't really, performing, and they were going to switch him out with Rochelle, and they were just talking about how, that's just the mindset of our guys. Like, if one guy isn't necessarily performing well, then we have other guys ready to go. So I don't know if maybe he's not seeing it in practice, if it's just not, resonating on the field. I don't know, but I don't know why he's not getting that burn. I would like to see him out there getting some play time. Like, what more damage can we do?
Yeah. Well, I think he'd be good in the nickel. I think not even have to play safety, play him in the nickel. So then you can really use Jalen Ramsey to take away their best option. And then you can use, Terrell Burgess in that kind of star role and move him around where that money roll and dime package is. But, at some point too, we can sit here and say all we want and see play the hypotheticals and play the, hindsight's 2020 after the game. You have to have a little trust that they see more than we do in practice, and there's a reason for it. But at this point, after last night's performance, I think we're allowed to be critical on what's going on that side of the field. Last thing about the defense, and the secondary obviously has its issues with what they gave up with Debo, but the big thing was the rush defense. And when you have players like Aaron Donald, you get Von Miller, who was his first game, so we kind of have to throw that out. Still get him acclimated, but you have these great players, and they just get gashed play after play after play by the run game. Like, it was coming. You can sit there. These guys are a lot smarter than we are, and they had to know the run is coming 9 out of 10 times, and they just could do nothing to stop it. So my question for you, Brittany, is A, how big of a loss did that show that Sebastian Joseph Day was, who's on the IR now, because he's a big part of that middle of the defense? And B, how do you think they can actually fix that moving forward? Because that's going to be a huge issue that teams are going to look at to try to exploit.
Man, I think that SJD was a huge loss. I mean, not just for the morale of the defense, just knowing that he's not going to be there for the rest of the season to help us stop the run. It's hard, bringing in Vaughn. I think that definitely, it boosts some things, but you have to understand, like, he has to learn, he has to basically fit into our defense now. Is it the same system? Is it like that, the 3-4?
It's very similar, yeah. He come from Vic Fangio's system. Staley's is very similar. Yeah. So he should have. Yeah, it'll be similar, but it's still going to take time. It's new teammates. Like, you don't know the tendencies of what, like, he's running
exactly
in Denver. He's running next to Shelby Harris every single snap. Like, he knows what Shelby does, his tendencies. Now he's going with whether it's Aaron Donald or whether it's Greg Gaines or someone else. Like, he doesn't know exactly what they do each play. So that's the bigger thing for Vaughn. It's not necessarily the scheme, but it's the guy next to him, what he does. So it'll take time.
It'll take time. Yeah, exactly. So I think that, moving forward, this team I think that we're more than capable of being that shutout defense. We were a great defense last week against the Titans. I mean, obviously they didn't have Derrick Henry, but, they moved the ball pretty nicely. Adrian Peterson had some fresh legs that, they got going. And against teams that have, really good running backs, we do pretty well at stopping the run. Like, we held Jonathan Taylor. I can't remember, but I think it was like less than 6 yards a carry. But, when it's time to do that, we do it. But it is just something about this Niners team. They know to run the ball down our throat, and they know how to just hit us where it hurts. And I think that all it does was it just made Sean McVay more frustrated. Take the bye week, get over it, regroup, and we got Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. Yeah, right. That should be fun. So, well, that's a good way to put a bow on it. So tough loss, Rams fans, but let's move on. We got the bye week to get things right. And then we, have the Packers which should be another good test, another fun game that as a team that knocked us out of the playoffs last year. So a lot right in there. But before we go, Brittany, we got to announce I'm super excited about this, but you are joining the LA Football Network with your own show. It's going to be the LA, football kind of recap show, if you will. We're going to have short little segments covering each team each week, breaking down the latest news and whatnot. So we're super thrilled to have you on the network. I know you're going to do a great job, but just tell everyone kind of what your thoughts and vision are and kind of why you want to do this.
Oh, thanks, guys. I'm so excited. So I'm born and raised in LA. I love all things Los Angeles. I love all things football. So I am looking forward to talking football, college and pro. So we got Rams, Chargers, Trojans, Bruins, just giving people that little recap, bringing them that info, bringing them what's, I guess, fresh info from the LA streets, and also talking some bets.
Yes. Yeah. Be plenty of betting information too, because you do great on that. And I'm going to be listening to that every week just so I can win some extra money for myself. So, but Brittany, thank you so much for joining me and helping recap this game. And we're super excited to welcome you to the LA football family and can't wait to see how your show does. I know it's going to thrive and do great. So thanks for joining us and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me. You as well. Bye.